up against your neighbour's wall,
Yeah,
how would you fare?
Yeah, especially these, they're bigger than me. So
How are you getting on with those? You still loving them?
Yeah, great. Since I got the trim off, room correction, they are really good. So
I was going to ask you about that as well, the room EQ stuff. Actually, let me just grab something.
How's the sound? Are we okay? Does it
It
sound
sounds
okay?
fine. It sounds like a Zoom call. I think one of the weird things with the pandemic, because if you remember, in fact, we were talking about you being on this podcast October 2019, weren't we? Because we were going to meet up at ADE, and I was talking about it then and whatever. Well, we did meet up in ADE. And if you remember, I didn't get any recordings done at ADE.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hire Pirate Studios, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and I'm going to travel around for it. And that was kind of the plan. So I was sort of committed to that. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I sort of went, oh well, bang goes that idea. And everyone was sort of telling me, oh, you should just do it on Zoom. And I'm like, no, that's just amateur, and that's not going to be an enjoyable podcast, because it's going to be either shit quality video or shit quality sound or just everything shit quality or whatever. But I feel like we've kind of just got to the point now, after a year of it, where like everything is done on Zoom, whether you're watching the news or the Graham Norton show or whatever. It's all on Zoom. So I think we've all just become accustomed to everything being shit quality. So it's a bit weird.
I fully agree with you. It's been great though in some respects, because it's cut out a lot of people's travel for a meeting, especially with business. I know a handshake can seal a lot of deals, but at the same time, when you're not allowed to handshake, it's probably easier. And
it certainly works to this introvert's favour.
Well, especially if you're in London, say, and you know how hard it is to get across London and things like that, or get down to London and go for meetings and So, but I don't know. It's very
random question. What's your travel to London like from Leeds? I'm guessing you've got a
2 hours 15. 2 hours 15. So
okay. I thought you'd be quicker than Manchester, but Manchester's 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think it says 2 hours 15, but it is more. It's less, sorry, but it used to be like 3, I'm sure, 3 or 4, because the trains got faster. So
okay.
Yeah. And they did less stops. That was it. They did less stops as well.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose that's going to speed it up. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because obviously I've only been in Manchester, I don't know, 4 years, something like that now.
Right. Yeah.
And I was always kind of under the impression, and every time I'd looked at London, going to London for whatever meeting or whatever, I went to, in the first year of being here, I went to the Universal Composers Party that they do like every summer. So basically all the composers and producers and whatever for Universal sort of get together and have like a summer party in their offices. And went to one of them, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll drive down, it'd be easier so I can drive back. And I drove down, and it was like, I think it was like 4.5 hours or something into central London. I was like, oh fuck, this was a bad idea. And the whole reason was for me driving down was because I wanted to be able to just escape and go home whenever I wanted. And I was literally probably there like 2.5 hours, and then the drive back, where was it? Somewhere near Birmingham, like the road was just completely shut down. The motorway was shut down, so I had to come off at some exit. And there were diversion signs, but they must have been like in the middle of putting the diversion signs down, because all of a sudden there weren't any more diversion signs. So I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to sort of, the sat nav is going, go this way, and I'm like, no, that definitely just goes back to the junction I've just come off. I don't want to do that. So I'm just having to sort of drive randomly in the middle of nowhere, and I think it was Coventry, somewhere around there, and Yeah, and then I drove and drove and drove, probably nearly an hour, and eventually I get to a point where I'm like, the sat nav has obviously kicked in now, and it's I've gone past the junction of the motorway sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I eventually get back, leads me onto the same fucking junction I was at an hour ago. And I'm like, no. So it took me about 7 hours to get home.
To get home, yeah. That reminds me of when I was coming back from Swansea at a gig. When I used to live in Scarborough. It was around,
that's a hell of a journey.
It was, especially when you were hungover as well. And what we did was we were going, and then the sat nav was like sort of saying, go left, go, and I was like, where do I go? I kind of followed the sat nav, and I had an inkling it wasn't the right way, so I thought, go left, and it'll carry on them. And I went, and then it said it was a toll, so it ended up being like a toll, and the toll, I can't remember, it was like £5 or £7 or something, but there was no way. Once I'd committed to that lane, I couldn't turn around and go, I don't want to go on this toll. So I had to go to the toll, pay to get through it, go round a roundabout, come back down to go back onto across to the M1. And it was, I remember it, and I think it cost me like 12 quid or something, and another 20 miles. And I was like, I always remember it. I'll have to find out. I'll have to look on the map and see where it was. But there was a diversion, and that reminded me of it.
Yeah. Our motorways are a nightmare. And living in Greater Manchester, like, we're just surrounded in spaghetti junctions and motorways everywhere. It makes no sense whatsoever. There's constant sort of, you've got 6 lanes that all of a sudden split off. And you're looking at your sat nav going, what the fuck lane do I need to be in? I have no idea. And then you come off, you come off on a slip road, or what feels like a slip road, that then suddenly splits into 2, and one of them goes north, one of them goes south. You're like, fuck, and you want to go east, and it's just a nightmare. But so
you won't be driving again, will you, to London?
Not to London, no. Well, this is the thing, is then I did a Mousetrap party a few months later, and played there. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get a train this time, because that was a nightmare. And so I had to look at the train. I was like, holy shit, it only takes 2 hours. Why the fuck did I drive last time? So I did it, and I got it was some overnight NCP style car park, whatever, at Manchester Piccadilly. It cost me like 3 quid to leave the car overnight, and I got down there and I did the opening set for the Mousetrap party, so I was playing at like 8 or 9 o'clock or whatever it was, and sort of looked at my watch and thought, I can make the last train home. So I was home by midnight. I was like, this is amazing.
I loved it. It's a lot better when it's like that. It's
definitely
straight there and straight out. I know when I was touring a lot, I was flying. I was getting the train down to Heathrow, and then flying Heathrow straight to the States, just because it was easier than going from like Leeds, Bradford, or Manchester to because the flights were cheaper and better. So what I would do is I would go down in the evening, stay at an Ibis, which was 30 quid. Wake up at 6, 7 in the morning, 5, 6, 7, and then go get a flight at 9, instead of like waking up at 4 in the morning and then doing a slog of, it's I guess that's, I think the whole pandemic thing is going to change a lot of offices and everything, isn't it? It's going to change, like,
I think so, yeah. Well, it's going to have to. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, I know quite a few people who work in IT for corporates and whatever, and I know, like, they were always saying, we should be able to work from home. I don't know why we can't do this. And all the corporate companies were saying, no, you couldn't possibly work from home. That wouldn't work, and all the IT guys are going, well, yeah, we could, because we can do all of this remotely. And then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden the companies are going, oh, you can work from home now. And they were like, well, yeah, we always said we could. So I think there's a lot of companies that have now gone, well, hang on, actually, we could save a bit of office space here and lower the costs and save even more money. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to go remote pretty much permanently now from people's jobs and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see how it sort of changes everything in the future, because there's going to be some stuff that just doesn't go back to how it was. I hope. I think I hope.
I don't know.
Have you got many bookings this year now?
I've got a few. The issue I found though is no one's 100% yet because they don't have there's no insurance for the festivals. So they say they're confident they can run the festivals and the events, but if it cancels say last minute or week before, they've got all the money they've paid out, they just lose it all. So they have to be 100%, especially the bigger festivals. Have to be 100%. But yeah, my US visa is that expired in March. Is it March? Yeah, that expired in March.
Right. Okay.
Oh, we're in March now.
This March. Okay. Yeah.
That was my 3-year visa. So, but yeah, so I'm not even.
Can you get 2020 back from that? Can you?
Probably.
I'm guessing.
I don't want anything to do with 2020, to be honest. That can stay there. So,
yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, I don't know. What I've done is I've just sort of said to myself, when it happens, it happens, and when it all opens up, or if it happens again, it's great. If not, I had a great time. Let's just continue doing what I'm doing. You've just got to think that, otherwise, yeah.
Well, 2019 for you was a ridiculous year for gigs, wasn't it? By the looks of it.
Yeah. It was a busy one.
Yeah, because
I'm glad
you seemed to be from what I remember, you were basically in Australia one minute and then Canada the next minute, and you're just all over the world, weren't you?
Yeah. It was easier to fly from Australia to Canada to Vancouver. So I went from Brisbane to Vancouver.
Okay,
It was 14 hours, right? So
Is that all?
Yeah. I went from Heathrow to Bangkok, which was 12 hours, and then a 2-hour layover, and then another 13 hours to get to. Yeah, so it was 24 hours to get there from London to. Whereas when I went the other way around, straight to Vancouver, and then I came back. It broke it up so much better.
Yeah.
But it was
that's a good way. It
was busy. I'm really glad that I said yes to a lot of the opportunities, because it was it was one of those things where I could have just stayed at home most of the time and just said, I'm going to pick what I want to do or what, but at the time it was right, let's just piece tours together. Let's if people are interested, let's just, do it, because it was a dream I wanted to do when I was younger. And obviously when you're young, it didn't really happen. So I just said sort of yes to everything, and I'm so glad I did, because at the beginning of 2020 I was like, right, now I'm going to slow down a bit and this, that, the other, and then obviously the pandemic hit, so it was kind of worked out perfect, because I was just like, if it had happened any time, I'm glad it happened then and not the beginning of 2019.
Yeah, true. I've spoken to a few artists who have had, they were literally in the middle of a world tour and whatever, or just at the start of a world tour, and it's still all question marks now, because they're like, well, I mean, there was a point where lots of people were just sort of going, oh, we'll postpone whatever happens this year to next year, and now we're at that point. An example being Nostock Festival that I play at every year. When they decided in 2020, they were like, this isn't going to happen this year. They basically got in touch with all the artists and said, can we just move it to the same weekend of next year, and we'll just do it then, and just have the exact same lineup and whatever. And I think they're still having to sort of, for the headliners and whatever, they're still having to sort of chase and confirm all of that. But that's basically what happened. But I think when you've got an entire world tour, you can't really pick and choose in that way. When it's a one-off event, you can kind of get away with just saying, do you know what, let's just postpone it for a year and see what happens. But I think when you're the artist on a world tour and you've got 70 venues all going, can we do the same time next year, it doesn't quite work out that way, does it?
No, it's difficult. It's difficult to commit for anything more than 6 months anyway, because unless it's a regular event, if it's a one-off event, and there's only so many Saturdays in a year, and then only Fridays, and there's there's 52. So you think, well, a lot of them are around summer or a lot around certain times, and they always clash, So it's hard to sort of say, I'll do it, because there's a lot of things happening. But it's I don't know. I think personally, I don't know about you, Don, but for me, this has shifted everything into more of the technical side for me, more of the business side, more of the music side. Instead of doing the performances, instead of doing the promoting, the social media, all that stuff, instead of doing that, now I'm actually getting time to sort of have a full day where I can noodle around in the studio with a new bit of kit, whereas before I was sat in an airport, you know. So
I think my career was kind of heading that way anyway, really. So I mean my touring days were over. Jesus, the first financial crash, 2008, really. I never, like, obviously I mean, I've had gigs in that space, but definitely. I think, you know, and I think we're both fortunate that we always had our roots in that sort of engineering side of things anyway, with things like mixing and mastering and tutorials and, you know, that side of stuff. So for us, you know, we've been pretty lucky that we've been able to go, I'll just do more of this then, you know. But I've noticed a lot of people are now doing a lot of streams, but like paid for streams and stuff. Have you done any of those?
I'm doing some work with the Mix Tank guys.
Oh, okay, you're doing that, are you?
Yeah. So I'm doing some bits with those guys because the guys behind that, they're kind of like part of my sister company to the my you know, with my team, my management team and all that. So it's all quite you know, it's all quite close together. So I've done like a video tutorial course which will be coming out. That'll be out in April, I think, and then we're going to do some like live one, sort of like track breakdowns and live where people can like sort of jump on and, you know, ask questions and all that kind of thing. So I've got those. I mean, I enjoy doing them, and I've done a couple. I did one for IO Academy in LA, where it was a 5-day, 2 hours a night because of the time zones. I was doing 8 till 10 every night, and then I did a 5-day course with Gawp, and that was cool but it was a bit weird, I'll be honest with you, because like I'd be on a Zoom chat like this, but then I'd look up at the big monitor up there and there's like 50 people and there's a moderator, an admin looking after it. And there's these 50 people, and I mean, you've got some people just walking around, you know, they're no t-shirt on, some guys or whatever, walking around doing their ironing, and then you've got other people just like that looking at stuff, just cleaning and it was like looking at a tower block, and I was like and because when I'd say, so I do this, and because of this, these are my techniques, and this, that, the other, does anyone have any questions? And then there'd be like a silence, and I'd look up, and because no one's talking to you, I was like, but there's 50 people online, and you're thinking, and then there'd be a pause, and then because what I should have done is said, you know, questions at the end, but I'd like to try and get some sort of feedback, it did work. It did work well, but personally, it freaked me out. Because it was like I was in a fish tank. Everyone was just looking at me. And there's no feedback, so all you hear is your own voice going over and over, and all these people voyeurism looking at you. It's like, it was a bit bizarre. But I mean, if I did another, it wouldn't be as bad. But in the end, like by the 5th day, I just didn't even have the screen up, so I couldn't see anyone.
Right. Okay. It's probably easier to do that then, isn't it? And just pretend you're talking to one person and not 50 of them. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I've been approached by a couple of universities over last year to give like guest lectures and stuff. And one of them was supposed to be face to face, and then we were kind of going, we might have to do it on Zoom, and then it got postponed and you know, unfortunately, there was a series of unfortunate events that basically meant it's not going to happen anytime soon. But I was kind of worried about that whole sort of doing it on Zoom aspect, because, you know, like you say, when you're there face to face, you can kind of see someone's hand go up or whatever, or someone can just shout out going, hang on, how have you done that? Or hang on, go back a bit. What was that first bit or whatever? Do you know what I mean? But when it's by Zoom, there's always that awkward delay as well, and that kind of makes it that extra, like they could go, hang on, go back a bit, and you're like, go back to what bit? Who said that? Where are you? You know, there's a whole different ball game then. But I guess it's just one of those things we're all gonna have to just start getting used to, really, aren't we? How do you think it's going to change with events? Because I mean, a lot of people have been doing like DJ sets and stuff live. In fact, you've been doing DJ sets, haven't you? How's that been going? Because didn't you do Twitch?
I've got like my green screen, which I dropped down over there on the down. Yeah, I did. I had to get into it a little bit because a lot of the labels and brands were asking me, to do things, and I felt like I owed it to some of the fans, because, if I didn't do anything and I was just more, like a hermit and just didn't have any sort of like contact to the world and keep well just it's like people want to hear, and people were giving me tracks that they were proud of, and I really wanted to sort of play them, and because I'd stopped my radio show for a bit and things. I thought I'll just keep doing it. So I did a few, and it was great because the only thing is the time zones, because a lot of mine were in America, so it was always like and one thing I will say is if anyone is thinking like how it hasn't done these, or if you're just starting out, if you think I'll be honest with you, none of them are live. A lot of them are not live. They're all pre-recorded.
Okay.
I've done so many pre-recorded, and the issue they've got is because when these started out, it was easy because you could hit record, go live, and do it. It's great. But then when you start curating a little like lineup or a festival of different DJs and artists, and they're all in their own environments, then someone's got to put it all together, and then the streams after, and they have to make, like one of them made a dedicated server just for us in England, so that it was stable, so that it would go. But then there's a crossover, and that one worked really well. But for a lot of people that aren't experienced in tech, but the musically background, with music backgrounds, they kind of, so they can't run a risk of having like 12 DJs on in 12 hours, and so one of those DJs saying, my grandma's picked up the phone and the internet's cut off, you know what I mean? or anything like any sound issues, because as soon as you've got like 10, 20,000 viewers and someone's like offline for 5 minutes, people are gonna go, this doesn't work for me,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it makes sense, really.
Yeah. And also, if you do it, like I did a mix, and what I do is I still sit on the on the chat and everything, and I still get up at ridiculous hours and things. But what I did was I did a mix of 56 minutes or 54 minutes, and then I thought I played the wrong track. I thought I didn't want to end on this. I'm going to quickly mix out of it, and the mix went terrible. And instead of like letting it play till 60 minutes and going putting my hands up, I've messed that up, or I stopped it. So then I had to just do it again. And it felt like the days of when I used to have tape recorders, and I used to hit record and play, and then do a vinyl mix and everything, and then mess it up or whatever, and then I'd have to rewind it back, play it again, and it was quite fun as well. It was
I remember I remember when mini disc first started and became a thing, and you could put in edit markers and stuff, and it was just like this legendary moment where suddenly you realized if you screw up a mix, you can basically, if you just find the drop point of a record or whatever, and be like, I'll just pull the needle back to that drop point, and then mark it on beat 1, and then later on I can just pull that bit out of the mini disc and edit that bit out later. It was amazing.
That was it. Or if you did, like I used to, when I first started out when I was really young, I used to mark on the I used to get the vinyl sleeve, and then what I'd do is I'd set my set out, and then I put do you know like what teachers use, the little round stickers, the dots?
Yeah.
They're like red and yellow and green and
yeah.
And I used to have those, so I used to put them on the side I was going to play. So if it was the A side or B side, if there was a certain track, I'd make sure I did that, because the amount of times you play a dub and there'd be no vocal in it. That was like, especially like I was like thinking, and then what else I'd do is put the record sleeve on the edge of the where the pitch is, and I'd have a mark on it so that I knew that it was around that mark there, because I was only starting out. So then I had like this little like format, and then so I'd have it where I'd play from the front to the back, and then I'd have plan my sets, and so much time and effort, and stickers went into all that stuff. And I've still got vinyl now, and I find a sticker on it, and I think, oh, that reminds me of, you know, like you said though, when you mess up a mix, you just get on a breakdown and just be like, oh, you know, let's get it on that breakdown part. And I used to actually weld them together in Sony Acid, you know, Soundforge, is it Sony Acid?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, when I first started recording onto computers, it was like, oh, we can put a fade on that one, just set it off at the same speed just before. And
that's right. Happy days. Oh,
showing our age.
Do you know what? everyone sort of talks about, oh, analog's so much better than digital, this, that, and the other, and I'm just like, I don't want to go back to the days, you know. Even as a DJ, just for the basic fact of lugging that vinyl through airports and stuff, and you know, especially if you got 2 or 3 crates of the stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, and it gets lost in transit and all of that, and I don't want to go back to that. That's why my back is wrecked now, you know.
Yeah, no, I fully
Aside
agree.
From being old.
Yeah, one of the biggest things for me was when I was younger, I was a lot bigger than I am. I'd probably 2 or 3 stone on what I've got now, and I used to throw events, and I did events for 9 years. But the stage was like an alternative music venue, and I did an event called Sessions, and we used to set the decks up on the stage. But as soon as someone jumped around or I jumped up and down, it would just jump. And there was, you know, we tried all the suspended and all that. And I was just like, and then the Denons came out. I was like, S5000s. I was like, I actually had the Technics one, the silver. Was it the Technics or the Sony? No, Technics.
Yeah, the Technics.
That was terrible.
I remember. I don't know if I ever used them.
You couldn't push it. There was no way of pushing you know, like you can spin the center piece, you can either twist that or you can but it was always like the platter was moving, but you couldn't stop it, because it was like if you stopped it was like vinyl, and it just didn't respond, because it was digital as well. It just didn't slow down or speed up, and they were like 800 quid at the time, and I could only afford one, and they looked great, the build quality was great, but they just never took off because they just weren't Technics. I forgot about those.
I forgot about those. I remember seeing them in some catalogue or something. I don't know. I don't think I ever even saw them in real life, but I remember seeing them. They must have been in the back of DJ Mag or something like that, I guess. And I remember seeing those, going, oh, they look great, they look the part, but
no, they weren't. They had and you couldn't even put a vinyl on them, which I was disappointed about. So I wanted to replace the thing with a vinyl, but you couldn't. So like 10 inch, I think.
Yeah, I guess that would have been quite cool if you could have done that.
Yeah.
So where are you with Gawp stuff now then? You're still, because obviously, so you've basically moved to doing more mastering and stuff like that this year or last year, I guess.
Yeah.
Are you still planning on things like world tours and whatever? Because you mentioned earlier that you're sort of, you know, you're more studio based and whatever now. Is that the plan now? Are you going to stay studio based, or?
I think the plan for me is to probably, it would make sense to do less as well, to do be more selective about where I play. Probably be more what's the word? I think for me as well, like at first when like most artists, you have to get your name out there, you have to make opportunities for yourself. You're led by your management to say, you know, this will be a good look, head over here, do this, do that, and it's great. So that was great, but I think after a while you can then start to, you know, things like the interviews and these kind of things. At first you just say yes to them all, but then after a while you sort of think, hang on a minute, I'm taking time up doing all these things, which are meaningful or which ones, you know, and then so for me it's the same with events, you know. I think that'll be, I'm still writing music, you know, every week, and if anything I'm writing more music now, although I don't feel like I am, because I don't spend all the time on my own music, but I'm writing more now because I'm not away for 4 weeks, so I'm not away so before I'm looking, but I feel like I'm not writing a lot because I'm not working on my own all the time.
I'm the same, because I work with a lot of other artists and produce for other people and stuff as well. So I feel like I'm always writing, and I do, you know, I work for like production library stuff and whatever as well. So I'm always sort of, you know, getting briefs through and writing stuff and whatever. But honestly, so my album came out September last year, which was supposed to come out April last year, but 2020. And so I'd actually finished writing it in like October, November 2019.
Right.
And I haven't written a single track for myself since.
Right. Yeah.
I've just got to that point where I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I do now, because at first I was like, well, I don't want to write anything before my album comes out, because otherwise I'm going to write my best ever work and I'm going to be pissed off that it didn't go on my album. So I'm like, right, I'll just, take a bit of time off and just like I say, I'm lucky enough that I write for other people anyway. So I am always writing. But yeah, I think a couple of months ago I started kind of opening a couple of projects and going, I could maybe do something like this. And then maybe half an hour into it, I'm like, I'm not feeling it, and I don't know like where I go from here. And it's really weird. It's probably the longest time, other than one other time where I think it was nearly 2 years I didn't write for myself, and that was before I got signed to Mousetrap. So that was 2013ish, where I'd kind of realised that I'm too old and too ugly to become famous and do big things, and I was okay with that. Like I mentioned in the podcast the other day actually that there was a point where I realised I'd hit my ceiling as an artist. I realised I was never gonna blow up. I was never gonna have this huge whatever, and I was okay with that. But at the same time, I kind of figured, well, I need to just do what I love then, and not keep chasing money or chasing contracts or chasing exposure or whatever you want to call it. So it was kind of weird, and I guess that's really where I found what I do now, really, in terms of style of music and whatever that is. And when I just stopped giving a shit and I stopped going, I'll do this genre, I'll do whatever, and it got to a point where I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do what I like, and just I like this synth, I'll work with this synth, I don't care what the style of music is. So it was I don't know, it's just kind of, for me, that was kind of my point where I thought I'm done with, like, as much as I love performing and I love gigs, if I'm offered a gig that ties in with the rest of my life, I'm more than happy to do those gigs, and I love those gigs. But for me, that was kind of the moment where I decided, I think so. I tell you what, I got in fact I did accept, this was probably the last kind of gig in that era. I played at Pasha in London, and I played in the Room 2 supporting Yolanda Be Cool. And there was just a moment where I had at the time I was doing laptop, and I had my NI machine and iPads and controllers, and was doing all these fancy technical things, and I just kind of stood there looking at the crowd, and I was thinking, they haven't got a fucking clue what I'm doing, like, nor do they give a shit. And I was thinking, why have I lugged this suitcase full of equipment all the way from Cardiff to London to do this? I think it was an hour, maybe a 90-minute set, and for nobody to give a shit. And it kind of didn't make sense. And then the guys on after me rocked up with a pair of headphones and a USB stick, plug it in, boom, away they go. And I'm looking at it thinking, that's me done, I think. So so it was kind of from then I just kind of figured, and that was for crap all money as well. And I remember on the way back from that gig thinking, I think I'm done with just taking every possible gig I can ever take, because I'm just, I'm too old and tired to be out at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for a fucking bus back to Cardiff with a suitcase full of equipment. Like, there's just no point to it anymore.
For nobody.
Exactly. And it just, I think this is the tricky thing, that new producers, anyone who's sort of just starting their career or about to start their career in the music industry, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like we're at a point where it's almost like it's just taken for granted that everybody does everything for free, and that you're just expected to go, oh yeah, exposure is payment now. And I don't know, I just so for me that was my turning point, was where I decided, fuck this, I'm not doing shit for free anymore, because I've been doing that, and look at where it got me. It got me to playing some shit gig in Pasha in London that was just left me unimpressed with myself. And I just kind of walked away from that and just thought, fuck it, I'm done.
I think that's it's also down to the individual, because I know, I fully understand what you mean. I remember an ex-girlfriend of mine saying to me, because I'd had a string of like rubbish gigs and they weren't that great, and I don't think I was Gawp then. I wasn't doing the Gawp stuff. I was doing like maybe my own stuff or my events, because I did events. Everyone had asked me to play at their events and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was doing stuff, and she said this to me. She says, "Ollie, you're doing what you love." And I went, "Yeah." And she went, "But you're not happy doing it." And I was like, I went, but I mean, that was the similar sort of thing. I was sort of doing like gig swaps, or I was doing, and I was thinking, and I'd get there and then it'd be like, oh, we've booked you in a hotel, but it's like, we've booked you for Sunday night, not Saturday, so we've got no rooms. And then I'm like, well, where's the promoter? Oh, he's not here. He's gone to like get his hair cut and this, and then you just sort of stuck in a city like 4 hours away going, and I think that the issue you have is if you don't get to that level, like for me, I gave up. I quit. I like gave up DJing, and I did a lot of and then a lot of like big residencies around the UK, these super clubs, when you could smoke in clubs and all that stuff. And it was like Saturday night resident, 5 hours recycling tunes, getting on the microphone, playing all the big hit anthems, and 3,000 people. And after that, I fell asleep on the way home from Warrington. I was resident at Mr. Smith's with a friend of mine, and I fell asleep at the wheel, smashed my car up. I was all right, but my car was a write-off. So I managed to drive it home. And then I said to myself, I was leaving the house at 6 o'clock, and I was getting back at 6 o'clock in the morning. So because it ended at 2 and it took 3 or 4 hours to get home. And I worked it out, and I think I was getting around 150 quid at the time. It was years ago, and I was happy because it was playing to big crowds, playing my vinyl, doing all that, and I was grateful for it. But then I realised, I thought it's not worth risking like falling asleep every Saturday night. No,
that's it.
So what I did was I stopped everything, and I started making music. And then when I started making music, everyone was like, "We want to come and play. We want to book you." And after 2 years of people pestering you to come and DJ, you're like, actually, people, these aren't having a laugh. They do want to hear the music I've made. So that's what got me back out. Otherwise, I'd have been like, And I think what happens is with a lot of people, the novelty wears off. Like I played a gig 2 years ago, early Gawp, well, not early Gawp days, but sort of mid Gawp days, and then I got to this gig, and the club owner had shut the club down. Taken over the club night, there was meant to be an event on it, and the venue owner said, and I said, "What's happened?" And they said, "Oh, well, the opening DJ, it's his CDJ 2000s, so but the promoter didn't pay him for the last 2 times he's hired him and put him on in an early set. So what happened was the opening DJ took him with him and just left." So I turned up, the club was going, the music was totally different. And I got there and I was like, right, where's the DJ stand? And they were like, oh, no, that night's cancelled. Wait, the owner's taken the venue back. And then it was like, and it's all those things that I was just like, and they're the things that no one talks about. Everyone puts up on socials like, going to Amsterdam to play this gig and there's 4 people there, or no one says anything about that. The hardship of it. And then they only show like what the sort of fruits of it all. So definitely. I'm honest, I talk about it.
Do you know what? I think that's maybe one of the things that this pandemic has kind of helped shift, I hope. So I don't know. I don't ironically, I don't follow the industry that much. I don't in terms of like other artists, like There are artists that I love, and there are artists that I'm friends with and will always love regardless.
Yeah.
And then there are artists over in the distance that I see doing things, but I don't care. I don't follow that. I don't want to know what they're doing, you know. So if I'm honest, probably 80% of big EDM festival headliners I have zero interest in. And like I honestly could not care less what tracks they have coming out or when they're on tour. Don't give a shit. It's just it's something outside of my life, and like their music does nothing for me because it's just bland, soulless crap that's not even written by them. It's written by 10 other people and whatever. Yeah, us. I've actually lost where I'm going with this as well now. I've just gone into a rant of slagging people off.
The pandemic about what it started out, yeah.
Oh yeah, but I think what's been somewhat interesting is that I have seen a few people coming through, and I don't know if maybe it's a shift in my usage of social media or what, but I'll give you two examples. One of them is Goldie has been appearing much more in my feed, and he's just doing yoga, fitness stuff and sweating in the gym and just normal everyday stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's in a Goldie world, and that's that. But he I don't know if he was always like this, but he just seems to be coming across as this super nice human. And the other example that comes straight to my mind is Annie Mac. Again, I don't know if Annie Mac was always like this on social media. I've only just recently started following her, but it's because these things have started coming up in my feed where, you know, she's got a new book coming out that's just sounds like a really dark novel, and she's done a few little things on social media, little videos and stuff, completely unrelated to music. But that's kind of the point I'm saying, is that I think that people seem to have found their real selves. Do you know what I mean? And so like Annie Mac, I've been watching her posts over the last, I don't know, 6 months or so. And every single one of them, I'm just like, God, she's such a nice woman. I really just want to just go up to her and give her a hug. Do you know what I mean? Like the things she posts are just so beautiful to read and watch and whatever. And I think it's brought in this new human side to a lot of people because I'm not saying Annie Mac ever did this, because I honestly don't know, but there are lots of people, I mean, fuck it, let's name names, people like Armin van Buuren, people like Tiesto, you know, people like Dada Life and whatever, where you constantly, all you ever saw was photos of them stood in front of their private jet, and then, you know, a photo of them with their hands in the air and 50,000 people screaming in front of them and whatever. And that's all you ever saw, was just their constant relentless touring and all the good bits. And what you never saw was one of them sort of just having a bit of a fucking meltdown in an airport thinking, I haven't slept for 3 days and I'm hungover, I'm pissed off, and life is shit. And do you know what I mean? Because I feel like that's probably more the truth for a lot of these guys than they're ever willing to let on.
I think I know what you mean. One thing I did see which was really good, it was someone's tweet. I don't know who it was, some random person put, it's all good and well, these guys out there teaching people how to produce records, how to DJ, how to use the new kit, how to, you know, be a wizard on all that stuff. But no one's teaching them how to make a business and make a living out of it.
Yeah.
And I thought that it really touched me, because I was like, actually, and then like, so I was like, then started doing a lot of mentoring for people and helping people and sort of saying, you know, like when people say, oh, if I buy all this hardware kit, what shall I buy? And this, I'm like, no, think about, you know, put it into a business, do it as a business, you know, get your domain set up, get your services set up, get this, do that. And then, you know, and then you can sort of create, you know, because let's face it, in 10 years time or 2 years time, 5 years time, I can't sell Gawp. I can't say, oh, anyone want to buy Gawp as a business? Doesn't work.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, like shifting it over to my services, my audio services, my experience, my mentoring, all that stuff. That's like kind of the sort of, that's where I'm getting at. I'm creating a channel to sort of say, look, you know, whether it be do presets, sample packs, you know, helping people finish tracks, like similar like what you do yourself, all that stuff. And I think that for me is one thing that I've really noticed, because there's so many things popping up. You know, you don't have to play chords ever again. Just download this MIDI pack. You don't have to like even put things in, and all this production stuff, which is great for learners, beginners, and you know, just drag and drop stuff, which I think is amazing. But at the same time, it doesn't teach you how to, you know, doesn't teach you like, and then your management will say, any management are great for you as an artist, but as like a business thing, it's sometimes not always like the best way either. Not saying that anyone I've had in the past, it's I'm going off on a rant here, by the way, but what I'm getting at is it's like no one says to you, oh, like they'll say, oh, build you up as an artist. They won't say go and study something, or go and get like a little bit of a real good money earner behind you, so then you don't have to do every gig, and you don't have to rely on the gigs to get paid, or your royalties or all that stuff. They won't say to you, go and work in a factory for 3 days a week, which I would give advice to anybody. Go and get something that pays a lot of money, little time, couple of days, keeps you grounded, and then you can buy anything you want. You can then put the money into your music. You're not having to rely on the Saturday night gigs and all that stuff. So for me, that's one thing I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So I think I've always kind of said similar, where you know, I'll give you a couple of examples from my experience. I remember, Jesus, probably over 20 years ago now, my brother-in-law, I had a good job with, well, good money for my age. I was only 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had a brand spanking new car. Nothing amazing. It was a Fiesta, but I loved it. And it was brand new. And, you know, that was obviously on finance or whatever. And, you know, I ate well, whatever, and socialised, whatever.
Yeah.
Lived a pretty good life. And I remember kind of bemoaning, because I'd always been doing music production and was trying to become something in the industry and trying to get my foot in the door. And I remember my brother-in-law at the time going, Dom, what the fuck are you playing at? And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you sat there with your new car and your nice house and your cushy job and whatever, and you're moaning that you're not in the industry. He was like, fight for it. He's like, you should be living in this shitty basement, eating beans on toast, like just struggling. You know, if you want to make it, go for it. And that was that. I did. And it got, as luck would have it, probably a couple of years later, and I did push and I sort of got rid of the car and sort of trimmed my life back to whatever. And it was a couple of years later. I had like an option for redundancy and stuff like that, and I took it. And I was like, I reckon I could live, if I really pushed the music thing, I reckon I could live for about 4 months and maybe 6 before I have to start looking for another job. So and that was 20 years ago, so I never did look for another job in the end. But I kind of it's one of those things though. But I guess what makes all of that difficult today is, I think back then for me, and I've said this before in other podcasts and interviews and stuff, for me, when I started my career out, there was a clear set path in how I was going to do that. And I think there was also fairly clear money in how you could do it as well. And also, let's be honest, 20 years ago, if you were British and you were a DJ, you were kind of, you know, if you were going to make waves in any scene in Britain, especially London, you were pretty much guaranteed to make it internationally then, because the rest of the world looked at London, basically. If you had gigs in London, you were going to get gigs around the world. Nowadays, that's not the case. Like, every country has their own thing, every city has their own thing, and every producer plays their own music, and every DJ plays their own music. There's no... So, like, how do you even start off today? Like, what... I guess that's the advice I guess most people are looking for now is where do you even start? Let's say you're you know, you're a great producer and talented DJ and whatever, but you've got no contacts or whatever. Where do you even begin?
Yeah, well, this is something a lot of clients ask me, because whether it be mixing and mastering, or some people I'm sort of like taking under my wing for mentoring permanently and stuff, it's for advice. And one thing I've found is we've tried different ways of sort of getting music heard, or and different, using the contacts I've got over the years, and even the relationships I've got. But and then they kind of hit a stumbling block, because they're like, hang on a minute, we've got unless they see long-term potential instantly, like they think we can make a lot of money out of this guy, or we can see him in a long-term plan. I always find what they'll do is a lot of like labels or management companies, they like to bring them in as more of a team. So what I've started to advise to people is, myself, this is me, is try and build up a community within the people that are all in the similar position. So like one guy that I've helped set up a label for, he's now working with all the people that are coming to me, sort of saying, you know, I've got a friend who runs events and he's into his production, and he does events in Scotland. I've got a friend over in, you know, like Italy, they run events, they've got their own label, and I'm kind of like sort of introducing all these people to each other, and then they're getting like a nice close knit, and then that way I find that it is helping, because I know it's my experience and my sort of contacts, but I feel like people are helping each other and they're both getting something out of it. Whereas it's very much the industry, or the music world is very much, everybody look at me, listen to my music, it's the world's best. It help other people, and then they'll go, do you know what, he's a good guy, you know, he's helped me or he's supported me, I'll give that 5 minutes to listen to his music, and then they'll go, actually he's really good, and then it's like you've got that instantly. So I've found that, you know, my career has never just been all about me. I've produced radio shows for 5 years, worked behind the scenes with a lot of different things. All I've ever done is help people, and then when it comes back to you, it's kind of like, oh, actually, yeah, he's all right, we'll give him an email, or
that's definitely one of the bits of advice I've always sort of given people is you know, build bridges with your friends and keep your friends with you, and sort of, you know, never burn those bridges either, because the thing is, you know, you could I don't know, do a job for someone, and you know, that someone could be an arse, but somewhat thankful, and if you just sort of go, oh well, fuck that guy, you know, then you know, that person could be a superstar in 2 years' time, and then looking for someone with your exact talents, and if you basically gave them the finger, you know, then you know, you've just missed that opportunity, and I guess that's kind of a key to making it in this industry, I suppose. You know, go on.
I was going to say, a lot of my contacts and things, there's been 2 occasions that really stand out for me. I played in Croatia, and I got on this boat, and I saw the crew of people and the team and everything. And I saw this one guy I've not seen for ages, and he used to work behind a bar in this a bar in Huddersfield, where I used to DJ a lot. And I thought, oh, he's the barman, and I said to him, I recognise you, and he went, oh yeah, DJ Huddersfield. I went, yeah. And then I said to him, oh, what are you doing nowadays? And he went, oh, the island you're going to play on, I own it. I went, wow. Yeah. And he went, yeah, this festival is on my island. And he's got, you know, obviously he's got, the company's got various bits, but it just shows that the guy that I thought was just a barman. Yeah. And again, the same instance, I saw a guy at one of the music conferences, and I said to him, oh, I haven't seen you in years. He's still in the industry, because he used to do events. And he was like, yeah, I'm in the industry. I said, what are you doing then now? He says, oh, I run Printworks in London. I went, do you? He went, yeah. I went, I thought I'd not seen anything or heard anything of him for years. Obviously, he's been so busy behind the scenes doing it all. I was like, this dude I've known like 15 years or 10, 15 years. And that's what I'm saying. That's what you were saying. It's like, it's all those things that, and it comes back round that, you know, artists have 2 or 3 names before they even get successful. Like, you know, I was in a duo before, and did 8 years of that, and and did it all, you know. And I think that's it. And I think one thing I always say to a lot of people is just never give up. If you're passionate about music, whether it be, even if you just want to sit and write on your days off and you've got another job, and just if music's in you, I think it's in you, and it'll never leave you, and you just, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, you know, when I had what would have been one of my last day jobs, and I had a little diary with me, and it was a desk job, so I had that little diary, and it was always next to me. I've still got it somewhere as well. When I moved to Manchester, I pulled it out of a bag, and I was like, shit, I've still got this. It was like a 2002 diary or something. And I'd written every day. I'd got in the office, and I'd obviously, like, I'd constantly just daydream about, oh, you know, wouldn't it be cool to whatever, sign with this label or whatever. So, and I'd written little notes every single day, right? Oh, email such and such record label and ask them this stupid random question that was just my foot in the door. Basically, it was just a way of me kind of getting to know people in the industry, really, and you know, speak to such and such promoter about this, that, and the other, and maybe bring up the idea of you know, putting on a gig or two or whatever, you know. And yeah, it's quite funny looking back at it now, and just, that's all I did. I must have done more of that than I had working for the company who was paying for me. They were paying me for 8 hours a day. I was probably giving them about an hour's worth of work a day, because I was scribbling notes all day, every day, and I'd be like writing down track list ideas of sets and stuff like that. Yeah, so it was definitely a slog.
At least you could do that. I used to do hairdressing. So
oh shit!
I was like 6 years of hairdressing when I left school, and all I wanted to do was DJ. And so yeah, there was no sitting down. When you're at hairdressers, you can't sit down all day, only on your dinner hour. And then, you know, you have to engage, you have to be talking, you have to concentrate. You can't. You know, your mind starts wandering off, and you're just burning someone's head. You know. I'm like, gig at the weekend, and it's like I'm just like with a straightening irons or whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that about you being a hairdresser.
Well, I went to further careers advice at 15. They got me in a room and said, when you're leaving next year, you need to pick something. And I went, a vocation. There's nothing on here. And they were like, well, you can't leave this room until you've picked something. And I was like, so they said, I said, can't I come back and tell you? She said, no, you've got to do it now. In my break time, like 20 minutes. And I was like, so I looked through the list about 8 times. And I said, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do like welding and all. And I didn't really want to do anything. And then I thought to myself, hairdressing, I thought, I instantly, in like 10 minutes, weighed up all these jobs. And I thought, hairdressing, all you need is a pair of scissors, and you can earn money wherever you are.
That's true. That's true.
I thought, what other things I'll need to work for someone for that. I could own my own space. I could do this. I could be my own boss. So I just thought, I'll just tick that box. And I only thought, I'll get another chance in a year's time or whatever. And then I got this pack through the door saying you've enrolled in a MVQ level 2 hairdressing and all that. And my dad was like, well, you put your name down. You're going to have to do it now. So I was like... So I for a lot of years I was DJing at weekends, and then Friday, Saturdays, and then Saturdays were really difficult when I was hungover doing like cutting like kids' hair, and when they don't keep still and stuff, and fringes, and I was just like, but it was I wouldn't it gave me great sort of social skills, dealing with the public, dealing with all people. And it was creative as well. I got to style. I went to competitions. I did colouring. I did all that stuff. So
oh, that's cool. I never knew that about you. Do you know what? You could have told me, and maybe I'd just not remembered.
Well, you don't. It's not something you'd probably want doing yourself. So that's probably why it's not useful.
No, I don't have much of a need of a hairdresser these days.
And me neither. That's why I wear caps.
Well, I used to have proper long curtains. When I was a teenager, and then I had the undercut and everything because it was the 90s and you had to. Then I went for like a slopey cut where it was cut short at the back and sort of came down there.
There was a limit to that though, because you could look like a girl. Do you remember? You did it too much.
There was a certain angle where it wasn't going to work. Yeah, and then I had the gelled spikes. Went through that phase as well.
Yeah.
And then decided, fuck it, it's all coming off. In fact, that was touring that did that, because I was DJing, and I'd started DJing more and more regularly, and I'd started I realised that I was having to basically wake up in the UK, do my hair, get dressed, whatever, normal morning routine, catch a flight somewhere, fall asleep, and then get into a hotel and quickly do my hair again before going to the gig. And it was that pissed me off. And then I'd obviously go back to the hotel after the gig, wake up, do my hair again, and then have to go back on a flight, get off the flight, do my hair again, and it was just a nightmare. So
well, you do realise that the only thing I probably want more in my life is to do my hair again, because I don't have any.
Yeah. Oh God, you've got it all off now, have you?
Yeah. It only grows around the sides now. It was bald at the back for a bit, for a few years when I was like 21, 22. I had a bit of a bald spot, so I was like, nah, I can't look like Friar Tuck, so I had to get it off. So
a mate of mine did the same actually. He started going bald in university. He just randomly started getting a bald patch, and then he was like, fuck it, I'll just bick the lot off, basically, and that was that. No, I've still technically got a full head of hair. It's unfortunately, because it's gone silver, like it just looks see-through and it looks really thin. And because I was comparing, because someone pointed it out recently, I think it was probably my sister or someone, basically saw a picture of me and was like, oh, your hair's gone really thin. I was like, I don't think it has. And we were comparing photos of me when I was younger, and the only difference is the colour of my hair. But it definitely starts looking thinner now. So I don't know, we'll see what happens.
So, we've covered all sorts in this.
We today. Sure have. Do you know what, let's call it an hour there, I reckon.
That's cool, man. It's thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on. It's been a long time coming.
That's it.
But it's the whole plan of the podcast.